When it's time to study for a test, do you look back and realize either you didn't take notes or the notes that you took aren't very good? That's what we're going to talk about in this episode, how to take notes that will help you. I'm Mary Dittman. I'm an award-winning business professor on the collegiate level and the creator of Wonderful Life and College on Fleek. In this episode, we're going to teach you how to take notes like a pro. But first, let's take a motivation minute. One of the things science has determined about how our brains work is that if you're excited about an event in the future and you're looking forward to it, your brain starts releasing dopamine, and dopamine is the feel-good chemical in your brain, and it's also the chemical that helps you stay energized and motivated. And so, yeah, you might actually be excited when you step on the cruise for spring break, but leading up to that experience, every time you think about the vacation and you're so excited about it, your brain is releasing dopamine. So it's important to have something to look forward to. It doesn't have to just be the weekend or spring break or summer vacation. You could create a reward for yourself every day that you can look forward to. Maybe you say, when I'm finished with my math homework, I'm going to play video games. Or when I finish writing one paragraph on this English paper, I'll watch one episode of my show on Netflix. Whatever it is, find a reward for yourself because that will help you stay motivated and help you get things done. And it doesn't have to be something big and fancy and expensive. And besides, you should be giving yourself a reward every day because you need that to help yourself stay healthy and balanced, as long as your reward is something healthy and that will help you stay balanced. In every episode, we like to give you a study hack or a success hack. Today, we're going to share with you a success hack, and if you want the mother of all study tips, go to collegeonfleek.com and you can get the Study Smart Toolkit. That is the study system I developed for myself when I was in college because I had terrible test anxiety, and it has helped thousands of students over the years. It's just a video tutorial. It's me sitting down with you one-on-one and showing you how to study, how to make flashcards, how to make a practice exam. And we'll email that to you. It's completely free. Just go to collegeonfleek.com. Our success hack is going to tie in today with our program. This success hack is, if you want to be successful, you need to be keeping your class notes organized. So many times I see students that can't find an assignment they need to turn in, or they can't find an old exam to study off of for a final. And sometimes they're in my office and they have their backpack on my desk and they're like pulling everything out of it. It's like the guy from the Harlem Globetrotters who like would pull all the stuff out of his hair, or like Mary Poppins pulling like a lamp and, a bunny rabbit. All these, they just have like stacks of paper kind of wadded up in there and they can't find anything. And you burn up a lot of time and energy when you can't find stuff. And it's frustrating, isn't it? I mean, when I can't find something, I will sometimes just about lose it. So keep your stuff organized. You can do that with some students like one big, like I'm talking about a 4-inch 3-ring binder, and they like to keep all of their classes in one binder. That's good because you could always carry it around and always have it with you, but that's also bad because then you're always carrying around everything with you if you don't really need it. But you could use a big 3-ring binder for everything. You could have a binder for each class. You could just use file folders. You could use the portfolio tabs. For me personally, I like a 3-ring binder, like maybe an 1.5-inch 3-ring binder, and I'll use filler paper to take notes, and I really like that because it's already hole punched. And then I'll use divider tabs in there to separate things. It might be exam 1 material or chapter 3, however you want to do it. You could also then get some of the clear pocket protectors, or you can buy the tab dividers that have a pocket in them, and then that's where you could keep your exams that are returned back, or homework that comes back to you, or any handouts that your professor gives you, and have a different one for each category. And the cool thing about a 3-ring binder and those dividers, especially the plastic dividers that have a pocket on them, is they're really durable. So you could use them each semester. When you're done with a class, you could just take all your materials, and if you like to keep them, you could just put them in like a large manila envelope, and label it and stick it in the closet, and you can reuse your supplies every semester. And it's worth it to have either a portable or just a single hole punch that you can have with you in your bag, so that when your professor gives you something, if you want to just be able to hole punch it and put it in there right away. But keeping your stuff organized will go a very long way in helping you feel like you've got your S2G and like you are being successful because you know where things are. All right, let's talk about taking notes. And if you look back at our success hack, it's important that you keep your notes organized, because what's the point of taking all these notes if you can't even find them? A lot of students don't take notes. They'll figure that they can remember what they're hearing, or maybe if the professor has given you handouts, or there's PowerPoint slides or some kind of a slide deck that you have. But most students will find that they really need to be supplementing whatever they're getting in class with their own notes. Taking notes serves a couple of purposes. Number 1, it helps you remember the information. Number 2, it helps you stay awake and focused in class. And frankly, number 3, if you're taking notes, you'll understand what your professor is spending time on, because many times what the professor spends time on is what is important to them, and that is what will show up on the test. So the first thing with note taking, I know a lot of students think that they prefer to take notes on their tablet or their laptop or even their phone, and every piece of research on note-taking says that that is not the best way to take notes. The best way to take notes is going to be to use pen and paper. Or if you're using a tablet, you might want to look at an app called GoodNotes. And I use GoodNotes. It's really only beneficial for note-taking if you also have an Apple pen or a stylus, because you can then write on the tablet and it'll look like notes. So in GoodNotes, using my Apple pen, this is what it looks like if I'm taking notes. And then you can organize things on your tablet by category. Like you could have a binder for each class if you wanted to. It backs up to the cloud, so that part is good. But the most important thing is not typing your notes, it's handwriting them. The reason is, first of all, it activates a different part of your brain. But secondly, you have to listen more carefully, because you probably can't write as fast as you could type. And so you're having to really listen and almost summarize the information while you're taking notes. That means in the moment you're more engaged with the information, meaning you're already starting to learn it and commit it to memory. But also the other reason that you want to take notes, not typing them, is because the temptation is just too great when you have your laptop or even your tablet open to just, let me real quick, the instructor is saying something boring, or I already understand this point he's making, and you flip over to another screen. Well, now you're distracted and you're actually not paying attention. So being in the habit of taking physical notes, either pen and paper, or I would recommend an app on your tablet that you can handwrite on. Of course, the benefit of using pen and paper is that it's not going to crash. On the other hand, if you're using a handwriting app, if you're backing that up to Dropbox or some sort of cloud, then theoretically you could access those notes on another device if your tablet crashed. A second piece of advice would be ask your professor if you can record the lecture. Then you're going to need to sit close enough to the front and just use like the voice memo on your phone. Your professor may not give you permission to do that, in which case if they tell you no, then don't record the lecture. But sometimes recording the lecture can help you go back later, still take notes. It'll help you stay focused and stay awake, but you can go back later and you can supplement your notes by listening to the lecture again. If your professor doesn't have a problem with this, if they're using a slide deck, if they're not giving you access to that slide deck outside of class, like they're not posting it on a website or they're not giving it to you in some form, take pictures of the slides so you're not having to write everything down. And then what you can be doing is writing down what the professor is saying, because you've already written down what's on the actual slide. So if your professor will let you use your phone in class, use that technology to help you. Don't be on Instagram and Snapchat in class. Be taking pictures of the slides if it's permitted, and then using your phone to record the lecture. Again, you need to have your professor's permission for that. But you're still taking notes with pen and paper or on your handwriting app on your tablet. Number 3, for taking notes like a pro, review the material before you go to class. If it's just flipping through the slide deck and looking at what is the professor probably going to talk about today, if you have a textbook, I would recommend go ahead and read the book before you get to class. And that'll do a few things. Number 1, you won't be hearing this information cold, where you're trying to hear something you've never heard before. If you've sort of previewed it, it'll at least sound a little bit familiar. But secondly, if you're reading over, especially a textbook or any slide deck before class, if there's something you don't understand, then when the professor starts on that part of the material, you can ask a question. You can even say, in the textbook it says this, this, and this, and I'm confused. Or if your professor says something that contradicts what you've read, you can ask them about it, like right in the moment, and say, excuse me, you just said this, and the book says this. Which do you want us to follow? I would also recommend that you review what the lecture notes were from the previous class before you go into this class. I'm not talking about an hour's worth of review, but just take even 5 or 10 minutes and really look at and review what you wrote. Make sure you understand what you wrote in case if you need to go back and ask about anything before they begin on the new material. Another thing that is beneficial with note-taking, and I had a student one semester that was taking a business law class, and this was a very challenging class for him, and the slide deck was very detailed with a bunch of instances and dates and laws and verdicts. And he had the slide deck, the professor made the slide deck available, but he just felt like the information was so overwhelming, and then he would kind of start to drift off in class. And so when I was teaching him what I'm teaching you right now about note-taking, I said, also just for fun, if you're allowed to have your phone, and if not, wear a watch. But I said, just make a note of how much time does the professor spend on each slide. So you can either, whether you're using the stopwatch on your phone or you're just using a wristwatch, but you could write down the starting time or just pay attention. And one thing that kind of keeps you engaged, and it's like a little game that you can play with yourself, but it shows you where the professor is putting the majority of the lecture time, because people talk about what is important to them. And if your professor is spending more time on certain information, it either means it's more important or at least it may be on the test. Now, I have students who ask me, but I don't really know how to take notes. And there's not one set note-taking technique that is going to work for every person or every class. And as you take notes and get used to it, you'll start to figure out what's a good note-taking technique. And some lectures are going to be difficult. They may not be organized in a way that's easy to take notes. You might just kind of be taking notes, sort of just writing everything down, and then you may have to go back later and rewrite your notes and organize them into a format that is easy for you to study. What I can suggest to you is you're just going to have to practice. The goal is not to write down every single word your professor says, but you want to be able to get the major points and understand the flow of the information. So making a list, or and it doesn't matter if you make like bullet points or if you just write like a bunch of paragraphs. The format doesn't matter as long as you can go back and understand what you've written. I have a question for you, because College on Fleek is a dialogue, not a monologue. And I'd like to know, if you already have your class materials organized, how do you organize them? Put that in the comments and share with us how you organize your class materials. We always want to hear from you. What are you struggling with, or what do you need help with? You can put that in the comments, or you can always reach out to us and connect on collegeonfleek.com. And join us next week when we're going to talk about how to crush it in a group project. That's next week on College on Fleek.